My boyfriend disappeared into thin air the day before I was about to pop the question, and no one knew where he went. 5 years later, I overhear my sister talking to my dad, and I'm left speechless because of what they reveal. I, 29, female, have been single for the past 5 years because my boyfriend disappeared from my life altogether 5 years ago. Since then, I've been single and haven't even tried to talk to any other man because I've still held out hope that someday, he might come back to me. I had been with my boyfriend since senior year of high school. So he and I were together for almost 6 years before he vanished. We stayed together throughout college, even though we could only meet once or twice a month because of the distance. My boyfriend and I had a happy relationship in my head, at least. And on my 24th birthday, I was about to ask him to marry me, surrounded by our friends and families. But then the day before my birthday, he literally disappeared. He said he was going to be late coming home from work, so I waited all night, but he never came back. I made countless calls and sent at least 100 texts, but there was just no response. I even tried to get in touch with his friends and family members, but they'd all blocked me. Our common friends had no idea where he could be, and some of them just told me to forget about him. So even if they knew, they didn't let me know. I couldn't find any of his social media accounts either, and it was like he just disappeared without a word overnight. I still don't know if he knew that I was about to pop the question the next day or if the timing of his disappearance just lined up. But that was it. He was gone, and there was nothing I could do about it. I even considered going to the cops to file a missing person report, but changed my mind at the last moment because he was not missing. He just didn't want to be found by me. I made a lot of fake accounts on social media under different names to find him, but with no success. He probably either deleted his accounts or he was using some other name just like me. Whatever the case was, he was untraceable. And eventually, I had to give up because I was emotionally exhausted trying to look for him despite knowing that he didn't want me to find him for whatever reason. I honestly believe that he was happy with me, and he sure played the part when we were together. So instead of moving on with my life, I chose to wait for him to come back. If not to get back to me, then only so that he could at least explain what went wrong and I could have some answers. I did try to make things work with a couple of other men and went out on a few dates, but I just find myself thinking about my ex-boyfriend whenever I was out with anyone else. So I stopped because it was just too painful for me. For almost 4 whole years, I haven't said yes to or asked out anyone on a date because I just couldn't. I'd be fine otherwise, but every time I'd even consider going out on a date, my ex's face would pop up in my head like a warning sign. So I just gave up on it. For 5 years, I've been waiting for him, and I knew it was futile, but I didn't know what else to do. I started going to therapy 3 years ago, and it helped me deal with my feelings and cope with the situation healthily. So I'm not always moping or working, but I wouldn't say that I've forgotten about him. I know it sounds pathetic, but I was really serious about him, and I couldn't believe that he just disappeared without an explanation. But 2 weeks ago, I overheard a conversation between my sister, 33 female, and my father, 62 male, when we were visiting him. My sister doesn't live here. She moved to Canada for work when she was 22 and has stayed there ever since. She comes back twice a year for a couple of weeks, but that's about it. This time, though, she's been here for at least a month now because our father is really sick. He's been diagnosed with heart disease, and it's serious. So while my sister was supposed to go back 2 weeks ago, she decided to stay on. My sister and I have been on good terms, but we've never been close per se, and it's mostly been because of the distance. We used to be friends as kids, but then she left for college and we lost touch. Then she went away to Canada and built a life for herself there, and I stayed here. So there wasn't much scope for us to ever reconnect, but we've been getting along well ever since she came back. It was nice to have her here, even if it was for our father's sake. Last week, I went over to my father's place to drop off some soup for my mom because she'd said she'd be late, and I had a spare set of keys as well so that my father wouldn't have to come to the door to open it. I went in quietly and was about to enter my dad's room to check up on him, but I stopped in my tracks and froze when I heard my dad and sister in there talking about my ex. My ex had a really unique name, and we didn't know anyone else by that name. So I was sure that it was her that my dad was asking about. He asked my sister when she was bringing her and the kids down here because he wanted to see them once since he was getting too old and sick to travel now. My sister told him that they've been trying to think of a way to bring them here without alerting me and said that it's just too risky, which is why they haven't been flown in yet. As soon as my sister said that they were trying to avoid me, I was sure that this was my ex she was referring to. And for a few seconds, I just stood there silently because I couldn't make sense of what I was hearing right now. I left without a word. And once I got home, I decided to log into one of the fake accounts I'd made 5 years ago to do some digging just to confirm what I already knew. I'd always search for my ex-boyfriend's name on social media, but never my sister because she told me that she hated social media and wasn't active anywhere. And it never occurred to me either that she might be lying because I'd never even imagined that she and my ex might be linked. I tried to find her by her actual name, but couldn't. So then I used her nickname that our parents called her. And luckily, she had a public account on Instagram with around 200 followers. She must have blocked me because I'd never seen this account. I scrolled through it to find several photos of her with my ex and the kid who looked like the spitting image of my ex, apart from the eyes, which looked like my sister's. I think I must have just sat there and wept for an hour because this is where he'd been all along and everyone had known, but they helped my sister cover up instead of telling me the truth. For 5 years, my own family had been gaslighting me, even though they knew exactly where my boyfriend was. It made me sick to think of all the times my parents tried to comfort me when I'd go crying to them in the initial days of my heartbreak. They knew all along, but never told me, and it was sickening. And as for my sister, I couldn't even believe that she had the audacity to steal the life that was meant to be mine from me, and then come back here and pretend to be my friend every single year after that. I was disgusted. And I just wanted to cut them out of my life entirely. I didn't want to see any of their faces ever again. But before I did that, I decided to leave them all a little message because I wasn't going to just disappear like my ex did. I wanted them to know that I knew what they'd done, and I was never going to forgive them for it. They'd ruined my life. And for 5 years, they'd refused to do anything to help fix things either. Oh, I'd also found my ex's account from my sister's account, and he'd used a completely different name. So, obviously, I hadn't been able to find him earlier. The funny thing was this name was one of the nicknames I used to call him way back when we first started dating, but he told me that he hated it. So I stopped, and it never occurred to me to try searching for that name either. So make of that what you will, but I sent everyone the same message, and it was just one line. I told them that I knew what they'd done, and all I wanted to ask was why. That's it. Because that's all I really wanted to know. These people were my family, my home, and they were supposed to be the ones helping me out in times of trouble. But instead, they'd chosen to hide things from me, lie to me, and just make a total fool out of me. I thought that I'd feel better after sending that text, but I didn't. So I ended up calling up a few of my friends from back in high school, went to the nearest bar and got so drunk that I had to be carried back home. I was in such a state that I didn't even go to work for the next 2 days. It wasn't just the hangover or the binge drinking, but the pain and betrayal. 5 years had passed, and nobody thought that they owed me the truth or an explanation or some closure at the very least. It felt like I was going to drive myself crazy thinking about all that was going on. And so I didn't even check the messages that my family had sent me in response to what I texted them. I'd also texted my ex on his account because I didn't have his number, but he didn't respond to me at all until yesterday. He sent back 2 paragraphs explaining that he was married and even had a child now. So the fact that I even found his account and texted him was really inappropriate. He told me that he didn't owe me an explanation or closure, and neither did my sister. So I should just forget about him. He also told me that if 5 years hadn't been enough for me to be able to move the heck on, then maybe I was the problem and not her. So instead of being a creep and texting him, asking why he'd left me, I should get myself checked because there's clearly something wrong with me. That's what he told me. I didn't know what exactly I'd been expecting, but this was not it. I absolutely didn't think that he would blow up at me like this because all I asked was for an explanation and nothing else. It's not like I was asking him to get back with me because I knew he was happy with his life now, and I wanted the same for myself, which is why I'd asked him a really simple question just so that I could move on by myself. I didn't consider the repercussions of this, and I still don't know if I was actually wrong for asking him to explain why he'd run away with my sister instead of just coming clean to me and actually breaking up with me like a decent person. The rest of my family keeps trying to call me, but I'm not interested in talking to them, and the few common friends that we used to have are no longer part of my life anyway, so I don't really know whom to talk to about any of this. So I did regret texting my ex-boyfriend after I found out that he'd been with my sister these past 5 years after he disappeared without an explanation. Update 1. It's been a week since I posted, and I haven't been able to post further updates because I was too busy catching up on all the work that I'd missed. I realized that even though I wasn't exactly wrong for texting my ex and asking him for an explanation, I did realize that it was all pointless. He was just a horrible human being who cheated on me with my sister despite being with me for 6 years and then left without a word to start a family with her. That was how it was, and I needed to accept that this knowledge was all the closure I was going to get. For the first couple of days before he texted back, I didn't know how to feel because it was all so overwhelming. But now I feel considerably better regarding this situation. I'm glad that my ex said what he did because it just made me realize that I dodged a bullet because he was the problem here and not me. I'd given that relationship my all, but he preferred my sister. In this time, the loss was much greater because not only did I feel like I was losing my boyfriend, but I was also losing my family. They betrayed me and continued to betray me every single day for 5 whole years. I swear I wouldn't even wish that upon my worst enemy because I've been nothing short of an emotional wreck these past few days. Even my therapist seemed surprised when I told her what had happened. So it's pretty bad. I still haven't responded to my family, and I don't think I'm even going to read their texts because there's just no point. There's nothing that they can say or do at this point to make things right. Not anymore. I know my father's sick right now, but after what happened, I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive him. The only thing I can do right now is try to move on. Update 2. Hi, everyone. My whole sister came to my house today to have a civil discussion about our situation. That's what she said while waiting outside my house, calling me immature and juvenile because I refused to let her in. It's been 3 whole weeks since I overheard my dad and sister talking and found out the truth, and they'd all been texting me to try and get me to talk to them, but I hadn't even opened their texts to check out what they'd been saying, let alone respond to them. So as a last resort, my sister came to talk to me today. I didn't even understand why they were all so desperate to get me to talk to them because as far as I was aware, my family only cared about my sister or else they would have been honest with me from the beginning. So there was no need for them to act so desperate now just so that I wouldn't cut them off because I knew they didn't care about me as much as they did about my sister. My sister kept trying to reason with me. She kept telling me that she and my ex had fallen in love on one of her visits back home, and they tried to stay apart, but it didn't work. So they just had to run away. And my parents kept it a secret so that my feelings wouldn't be hurt. The plan was to let me know once I found someone as well so that I'd at least be able to have some emotional support. I don't know why she thought that would be a better option than just being honest with me from the beginning. Imagine I had actually found someone in the past 5 years, and then they came clean to me about what had happened. That would have 100% ruined my existing relationship at the time. Listening to her tell me about their original plan, I was relieved that I didn't find anyone and I found out the truth by myself. After a while, I finally snapped at her and told her to leave me alone or else I would have to call the police to force her to go, and I really didn't want to do that. So she lost her cool as well. And since she'd been trying to convince me for almost half an hour standing out in the cold and telling me that the only reason she was even trying to get me to talk to her was that our dad was apologetic and all this stress about me not speaking to them anymore was worsening his health. If Dad hadn't been sick, she wouldn't even have been there to talk to me and would have happily continued to live her life while I struggled to deal with the pain of it all. My sister truly is a piece of work, but at least she did leave after telling me that she didn't care if I spoke to her or not, but Dad wanted me to talk to him. And had it not been for Dad, she would have even flown her husband and daughter here just to rub it in my face. The taunt really got me, and I almost wanted to open the door and beat her to a pulp, but I refrained. I told him to go to hell. He cussed at me, and it took all the self-control I possessed for me to hold back then. He went away, and I've been trying to distract myself by watching Netflix, but I just can't get his taunting voice out of my head. I can't believe that my own family can be this cruel. It was bad enough that they cheated, lied, and betrayed me. And now he's here at my door just to make a mockery out of my pain? That's a new low. I don't know what to do about the situation with my father, though. Obviously, I don't want his health to get worse regardless of what they did to me. Maybe I'll have to talk to him at some point because I don't want a guilty conscience if his condition gets worse. I'm sure the rest of my family won't let me live it down if that happens and will hold me responsible for it. So I might just go visit him whenever my sister and mother aren't home. Update 3. Hey guys. I finally met my father and talked to him yesterday, and I'm actually thrilled right now. It has been since I met him because I made him promise me that he and my mother were going to change their respective wills and leave most of whatever they had to me. I've heard that if they left everything to me, it could potentially become grounds for my sister to contest the will. So I'm making sure that they leave her as little as they can. It took a while to persuade him, but I made it very clear to my father that the only way I would agree to keep in touch with him was if he promised me this or else he could forget about ever speaking to me again. I had to push very hard, but he did agree to it eventually. And our family lawyer is going to come over the day after tomorrow so I can personally witness the rewriting of the wills. And guess what? This is going to be a secret that I'm going to keep. For so long, my parents had kept secrets from me for my sister's sake. And now the tables were to turn. She would know how it felt to be betrayed by your own family just because they wanted to favor one brother over the other. It's manipulative and cruel of me, but they didn't spare my feelings when they were all covering up my sister and boyfriend's affair. So I don't think I owe them any kindness or compassion at all. Not a single one of them. It's significant too because my parents are relatively well off, and it's a considerable amount of money that we're talking about here. It finally feels like I got him back, and I got him back good. People think living well is the best revenge, but this comes kind of close too. If you ask me, yesterday, when I met my father, I was skeptical about what was going to happen, and I didn't really have a plan as such. I didn't know what to expect, but at least my sister and my mother weren't home. It was just us. As soon as I entered the house, my father burst into tears and hugged me and started apologizing while talking about how much he regretted his actions, but it just didn't hold any meaning to me. I felt empty and numb even while he was crying and only comforted him out of habit and not love. He then ended up confessing that he and my mother had known about their affair all along after they caught my ex with my sister in her room one night while she was visiting. My boyfriend and I had been together for almost 4 years by that point. So this was 2 years before they eloped. I was in the other room and had no clue, but my sister begged them to keep it quiet. And so they did because they knew they were in love. They all meant to tell me, but they just couldn't get the timing right. And then I decided to tell my parents that I was proposing. They told my sister, and within days, they'd arranged a flight for my boyfriend to move to Canada to avoid the proposal altogether while I searched for him like a madman back then. They'd warned all their friends, relatives, and literally anyone who was likely to talk to me to never speak of my ex's whereabouts. And that was how they made sure I never got to know. I must say that my family was quite impressive when it comes to acting, and I'd nominate them all for Oscars if I could because they played the perfect parents, comforted me day and night, and pretended to be there for me. Behind my back, they attended my sister's wedding and their baby shower and would often take vacations, which meant that they were going to visit my sister and my ex, but would then Photoshop themselves into other locations just to fool me. They went to such extreme and insane lengths just to fool me. My father was telling me the truth now just so that I would forgive him. But if anything, it just made me feel even more frustrated and outraged. So I gave him a piece of my mind and then told him that now if he wanted to make it up to me, he'd have to change his will. It just popped into my head when he was telling me all about their secret life. And I knew that even if I didn't have the emotional support system I wanted, I could at least demand monetary compensation. So that's what I did, and soon enough, I'll be entitled to 90% of whatever my parents have, and my sister will end up with nothing. I'm obviously still going to cut her out of my life entirely. And I've told my father that as well, that he's the only person whom I'm still willing to keep in touch with only because he's sick. He wasn't too happy about it, but he should be grateful that at least I agreed to speak to him after everything they've done to me. Although I might change my mind later. I don't know. All I do know is that my sister and ex deserve each other, and I deserve better. So that's what I'm going to look for now, better. I don't need any closure from either of them anymore. I'm done.